Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Lovers Podcast. This is a first for the Real Lovers Podcast. We don't really cover TV all that much. We cover movies, but I feel like I just had to talk about Ted Lasso because I don't know about my guests here, but the finale totally wrecked me. So had to I had to talk about Ted Lasso with two of the best content creators on the internet that was talking about Ted Lasso throughout pretty much season 1 through season 3. Maria, you've been on the podcast before, but this is the first time with the new rebrand. But
yeah, I'm loving this rebrand, by the way.
yeah, thank you. Welcome back to the Real
Yeah,
Lovers
thank you for
Podcast.
having me back. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and then Marmar, also
Yes.
known as Maryeesa.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Real Lovers Podcast for the first time.
Thank you.
How are both of you?
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good too.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into Ted Lasso. Before we get into season 3, the Ted Lasso premiered like during the pandemic, August 14th, I believe, 2020 on Apple TV. And I just want to get kind of what were your expectations when you first saw the show?
Well, honestly, I didn't watch it when it first dropped. I think it was very much I heard there was a lot of hearsay about this show. I mean, first off, Apple TV Plus, it was one of those newer streaming services, so everyone was kind of just like, what is the streaming service? And what should I buy another streaming service or not? And then I think from there, excuse me, I think when we started watching it when it had a season 2 came out, and then I was okay, and then I got all this buzz and a lot of critical acclaim, and I have always loved Jason Sudeikis from SNL days, and then of course a lot of his movies like Horrible Bosses, and then We're the Millers, and so knowing that Jason Sudeikis had this show that he created, I was like, okay, I'm very intrigued, and so funny enough, I only watched the pilot episode, and then from there it was a little slow, and then I kind of fell off from it for a few months, and then when I think it was in July of 2021, the season 2 came out, and that was when I was like, okay, I got to get back on this so I can watch season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the second episode of season 1, that's when I think it kind of started falling to place, or getting the ball rolling, and then as from there I just couldn't stop watching, and I binged all of it in time for season 2, and then from there I think it was just hooked on the story. It just felt like a refreshing story, and something that Jason Sudeikis, in my opinion, has not done. This kind of character he's never really done before, because I've always, from his SNL days and even a lot of the movies that I just mentioned, a lot of them he kind of plays an asshole character a lot. So it was kind of refreshing to see him play such a kind of just a cheery, incredibly positive, dad jokes kind of guy coach, and it was something endearing about it. As well, and then just the charm of it all, and even the supporting characters on top of that was just what got me hooked, and the rest was kind of history from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Maria?
Yeah, I actually am the same with Marmar. I didn't watch the show until the second season was out. So I was really late to that bandwagon. I think I heard all the Emmy buzz, and it won all the awards. So I didn't have Apple TV Plus, but I really wanted to get it because Mythic Quest was on Apple TV. So I'm like, I want Apple TV because of Mythic Quest. And then after I binged that, I'm like, you know what? I've heard so many things about Ted Lasso. Let me just start it. And I obviously love Jason Sudeikis too. I remember him from 30 Rock days. His character was an asshole in that too, but but he was so endearing. He's very Jason Sudeikis. He becomes the character. And I found out later that the creators of Scrubs were also associated with this project. And I loved Scrubs growing up. So I am a big feel-good girly. I love TV shows that are feel-good shows. One of my favorite shows, Marley knows this, is The Good Place. Mm-hmm. So what I liked about Ted Lasso, because I just started watching because of the hype. The cast seemed, I didn't really know the cast, but I know Jason Sudeikis. And I was like, okay, whatever. I've heard good things about it. Let me feel it out. And season 2 is what got me to. Season 1, I was into it. It gave the vibe of a feel-good show. And then season 2 just completely stuck the landing on creating these amazing characters that you're really invested in, having the Good Place vibes of trying to be better people. And I just don't think there's enough shows that celebrate joy that way. And I just love that Ted Lasso did. So yeah, season 2 was just oh yeah, I'm on the Ted Lasso campaign. People need to be watching the show. So, and I don't really watch sports, but football is like the one exception, and now I'm like completely hooked on it. I watched like the whole World Cup this year because of this show.
That's awesome. I think that's so cool. Like what a show can just get people inspired to like watch watch like a sport, because I started getting into like soccer after watching Ted Lasso, and it's funny because that's like that was the original goal for this campaign.
Yeah.
As you can see, it was like an NBC sort of promotion to get to teach Americans. I don't want to use this term, but I guess I'll use it. But dumb Americans, like how soccer is, and this is kind of like Ted Lasso was like supposed to be like that American, like, what is this football that you speak of?
Yeah.
To be honest, like when I watch a lot of sports, so I would see like those ads like all the time. I found that the ads to be a little kind of like hard to watch and very cringe. So when I found out that they were making like a show, I was honestly, I don't know if I was disappointed. I was just like, oh God, not this again. But and it took me a while to get into season one, because season one's great, but like both of you mentioned, like the show doesn't really get its footing until season two. But it's still a great show, like season one. But I just love so much about Ted Lasso, just that it's basically a show just about how to be like a good person, but you don't drag anyone to become a good person. Like especially a character like Rebecca, the team owner that hires Ted Lasso as like a joke, because she's trying to take down like her her husband's like former team, because they're going through like a divorce. Ted Lasso, he could have like come in and just like expected like just kind of like make like the worst of it, but he came in and just made the best of it. And I admire like people that lift up characters like that. It's just so great. It's so great. But yeah, I love the show. So yeah. But yeah. So season 2, I think we can all agree that season 2 is when we all started hitting. It all started hitting its stride, right? And we started like diving deep. Like, what were our favorite moments from season 2?
Oh wow. I would say, at least for me, I know they got together in season 1. Obviously, Keely and Roy.
Yeah.
One of the things I love talking about on my page is just Roy Keely. I think the reason why was because he was just a character that subverted a lot of expectations of this archetype of this like grumpy, brooding man that like I think you will automatically think that it's like because he's a little bit more masculine that he just like he just acts a certain way and like behaves a certain way and does all these kind of more tropes. But then as you get to know him, you realize that he's a lot more emotionally intelligent than that. And then and this idea of like not kind of giving a fuck about what any other people think to a certain extent. And I think from there, and I've always said this too, where like that kind of character also kind of subverts a lot of toxic masculine things when it comes to just sports. I think media in general, or like how like TV shows and movies portray like specifically male athletes, and to see that there's a lot more to these characters than meets the eye was something that I personally found fascinating. Because to Marley's point, I actually I still don't watch sports. I don't even watch football.
That's fair, very fair.
I think this show about sports is like one of my favorite shows, even though I just never watch sports at all. I think it's a testament to how incredible the show is in terms of storytelling and like being able to talk about the human experience, and then it's something that I can relate to, even though I personally don't watch sports. I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but going back to Roy and Keely, but I think Roy's character in that was so fascinating in that regard, and then how he kind of got with Keely in a way, I guess, from a female viewer perspective, like Keely was that stand-in of like, wow, this man is someone different that I can like find myself to be in a relationship with. And then from there, I was just like head over heels in love with the Keely and Roy, and then just all of that. And season 2 just gave me so much of that content and just so much of that relationship. It was just very endearing and just so heartwarming. And I call them like my TV parents, because they were in many ways imperfect, but also imperfectly imperfect, if that makes sense.
They're really healthy. They were like a healthy relationship on TV.
Yeah. Yes, Absolutely.
And then like to add on to that, because I completely agree with Marmar that like Roy Kent is like the typical footballer, right? With his cussing and his like attitude. But so you would expect him to be the toxic athlete, but like he just subverted that. But like his relationship with his niece is so gentle and like it's like he's like a girl dad almost vibe to him because of it. And then I just really love what they did with Keely too, because like even in the beginning, like her and Rebecca could have been adversaries, and it's funny because I was actually talking to someone else about this too, that they're like, you expect women to be against each other on these shows, especially like a show that's like about football, right? Like it's a male dominated show. So when Rebecca was against Keely found out, even with Sassy, like you would assume that there would be like some sort of like, oh, there's like three of them. One of them's going to not like each other. No, they all like got along so well. So I really love what they did with Keely's character of like, yes, she goes from footballer to footballer, but at the same time, she's also has in mind that she rejected Jamie when she realized that he's so like not growing. She saw more in Roy, and that's why she got with him. So I love what they did with Keely's character. Like she's more than just like the typical girly girl. Like she was a girl's girl, and she was someone that actually like thought about her choices when she was dating and with her career.
Yes.
And on top of like, so season 2 was probably my favorite, I would say. And I think it's because it just kind of like, it took the show a lot deeper when it comes to relationships. So like my two favorite moments is the moment with Jamie and his dad, which is a really heartbreaking scene. But I love it because I feel like that's like what propelled Jamie Tart on this like awesome character arc and like development that we see now. Like now Jamie's my favorite character. Like I never thought that. But I've always felt that sorry, this is gonna be a little tangential, but like I feel like Ted Lasso is just such a great show because it finally shows complicated father-son relationships, like in a way that you see different like levels to it. Like you see Ted trying to be a good father to his son. You see that he had a complicated relationship with his dad. Sam has a really great relationship with his father, but Jamie doesn't. Rebecca has a complicated with her father. Nate has a whole thing of his like daddy issues. And that moment with Jamie, just like everyone just like saw it. Like even Roy was like, oh my God, I get it. And he gave Jamie a hug afterwards. So that moment, I know it's not a happy moment, but like that just stuck out to me because I'm like, they chose to do that. And I think that's what like propels Ted Lasso because though it's a very happy show, it also isn't afraid to get it deeper. Like it's not afraid to talk about hard things like mental illness, suicide, semi-complicated relationships that aren't always healthy, like with Rupert and Rebecca, and like infidelity and people being at their worst with Nate. So I saw that a lot in season 2. And like, and I also love that we got into the mental health of season 2 a lot more.
Yeah, for someone that like has been watching sports my entire life, I appreciated the show immensely, diving into the whole mental health aspect because I feel like that's something that gets lost, especially if you're like on social media like Twitter and people like supporting like their teams. I'm not like hating on people that support their teams because go ahead and like support them, but there's a lot of times fans kind of like miss like that aspect, like there's a human on the other side that kicks that ball or shoots that ball into the basket. And what I love immensely, and Ted Lasso hit a home run or scored a goal. I guess scored a goal in this situation, but is that it really dived into like these human, like these players are human. Like even in season 3, I know we're jumping around here a little bit, but the Sam's episode in season 3 where he has like where his restaurant gets broken into and like fans are like attacking him, like he has like a moment where the fans are telling him to like shut up and dribble. Like that is like immensely like that hit me immensely because I have friends that treat players like that on like sports teams of just like, oh, don't talk about politics. It's like keep politics out of my sport. And the fact that Ted Lasso had the balls to like actually like touch on like a topic like this and hopefully get that like hopefully fans will realize like, hey, we should take a step back. Like there's like these players are going through stuff. They may be making millions of dollars, but they're human and they bleed just like us. I think like that. I feel like that's like when the show started diving deep into stuff like that. I instantly loved the show for that. Yeah.
Even like season 2, or sorry.
I was like, that also is a moment like art imitates life. Like that actually happened in real life too. Like the whole shut up and dribble. I don't know anything about sports, but I know that that happened to a player. So um, it was very like referential, which is really very meta, and I love meta moments too.
Mm-hmm. Marmar, what were you gonna say? Or
Yeah.
I was gonna say too. I mean, like, even from season 2, where I think it started with Sam and how he wanted to protest against Dubai Air for what was happening in Nigeria, and then I think what I loved about it was like the story kind of had different elements to it, because it also not only was that be able to be that meta commentary on like the politics and sports intersecting, but also helped with Jamie's arc from there as well too. That was like prior to that, like the team was very hesitant about Jamie coming back on the team after he had his little reality TV era, and then from there, like he kind of redeemed, or not fully redeemed, but like at least like they showed that okay, Jamie is making strides to try to be a better person, and for Jamie being one of the more successful, more famous players, being able to kind of stand in solidarity with Sam's cause it spoke volumes. Like his actions spoke louder than words in that moment. I think that Sam and I guess the other team players as well too, like read that. So I liked that moment. I like when the Ted Lasso dives deep into those moments. And kind of it makes it more impactful and bigger than the show itself.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. But even Ted Lasso's panic attack was in season 1 or season 2? Was it season
2?
Season 2.
Yeah, he had one in season 1 as well. That's how him and Rebecca connected. But the one at the game happened in season 2.
Yeah, that I feel like that moment, like that was really strong for me too, just because like I hate to repeat this, but for someone that watches sports, like the coach is always the one that kind of gets like like you see it now, like even with basketball ending, you see a lot of coaches getting fired like constantly, and it's all we always blame the coach. And like the coach is also going through stuff too. It's like he was going through like not seeing his son for like the longest time, like being in England, and it was just I don't know, just like that moment, like when he had his panic attack, I like this happy-go-lucky like character that we're used to having, like these giving like all these quips, like oh wow, he's human too, he's feeling stuff. It's like that I don't want to say it's a wonderful moment because he had a panic attack and those are never good, but it's just like it really humanized Ted, like from being like this kind of like I'm a goofy Ned Flanders coach. It's just it's like I don't know. The moment was really powerful for me. So.
Yeah, especially because you don't like. There's just such a stigma when it comes to mental health conversations in general. But I feel like for men, it's even like another layer because men aren't allowed to be vulnerable in general. So the show showing not only like in a sports setting mental health issue, but showing men trying to grapple with their mental health. I feel like you will never see that on TV. And it wasn't just Ted; like all the players saw therapists, and then like Roy Kent's story ending with seeing a therapist. Like it's just like they kept showing that theme, and I really love that they kept showing that Ted was still in therapy, because you will never find that. Like you will never find a conversation with men talking about their mental illness and it being like celebrated. I really like that Ted being so aware of his anxiety attacks, being so optimistic. He even had like he was hesitant to start therapy, and I like that they showed that because it showed like a relatable person, someone from the South trying to get therapy. Like it wouldn't be easy, even if you are aware of your anxiety. It's so hard and it's very overwhelming. Not to get too deep, but like as someone who started therapy recently, it's scary to do. And it's like I really like that they showed that even Ted, someone who's always striving to be better, was hesitant, but he did it even though it was so hard. And I feel like that's a really relatable experience for especially a lot of men who probably do feel the same way as Ted. Like, oh, I'm happy, I'm optimistic, I can push this off. But sometimes you need help. And I'm really happy the show showed it that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as a man myself, like it's common practice throughout like society to just like if I'm having like issues, it's just like oh just push it off to the side. It's fine. Like you'll get over it. You'll get over it. Like don't talk about your feelings. It's like be tough, be a man. And the fact that like the moment in season 2 when he's in therapy and he talks about like his dad reading like he said he was going to fail a test, and like his dad actually him telling the moment, and he was like breaking down crying. It's a tremendous performance by Jason Sudeikis. Like I'm not really the biggest fan of Jason. Like Marmar, I know that you're a really big SNL fan, and we could talk about that a little bit later. But it's like that performance was just incredible. Like Maria, you said that like Ted was like just he didn't want to do therapy. Like when he first went to sessions, he was just like, oh, I don't believe in this, because Ted was all he felt like he was above therapy because he was the one that was kind of he thought he could push everything away, but the fact that he was able to kind of break down and like have like a one-to-one and even have like a nice friendship with like the therapist like after, I think it's just wonderful. So
yeah. One of my favorite moments is like him and Rebecca talking about therapy, and he's like, have you ever considered therapy? And she's like, what for? I already know all my problems.
Right.
And like, it's so relatable because it's like, yeah, you were like, oh, I'm so self-aware, I know my stuff, I have friends. And she's like, do you want to talk about something? He's like, no. Do you? And he's like, no. And they just continue to sit in silence. It was like so relatable. But yeah, I admit, like, I've seen Jason be funny. I never knew he had this level of vulnerability and seriousness in him. He's a phenomenal actor. Like Ted Lasso like shows such a broader range of his capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marmar, what do you think about Jason Sudeikis? Like,
I mean, I was definitely blown away. Again, I didn't think that he had that kind of has that diverse of a range, and I love that he took this opportunity to show that as well. And yeah, I mean, he was always a funny guy too, and and he's funny like in a different way in Ted Lasso. Like he's like the dad jokes, corny funny that still lands and is still very much comedic. But again, the show has a good balance of being funny when it needs to be funny, but also like taking those moments where it deserves the attention and seriousness it deserves, and it does just that. So it's a good balance of both. And I also wanted to talk about how, or at least like add more to how I think with mental health and then fatherhood and like masculine, how like intersects, especially with characters, and how a lot of that can impact one or the other as a cause. It could be a cause and effect or correlate with one another. And I think this show does a really good job and showing those intersections and showing like how just how all of it can come together and like kind of make a whole person. Like a lot of things can happen to one person, and then that's just part of being human.
They brought that back in Jamie's episode. I think that was like the second to last episode this season so well. Like I love that episode because it's like Jamie's like clearly going through something. He's depressed, he's crying at Roy Kent. And it just turns out that he's afraid of his dad and like dealing with that. Like they're so good at bringing their themes back so well.
Right. And you brought up Jamie, and I think this is kind of like a good opportunity to just kind of start talking about the most current season that just ended. Marmar, you've gone out on social media and said that this is Jamie's Emmy this year.
Yeah.
Like just
I believe that too.
You want to just I believe that too, but do you want to just use this opportunity to just be like
campaign for him? Go for it.
Just campaign for him.
Let me help Phil Dunster in this moment. Yeah, I think what I love about and people have said this, and I've also said it on social media. Like I think Ted Lasso like wrote Jamie Tartt's arc so well, and then they stuck it with season 3. I think one of the best things about season 3 was Jamie Tartt's like evolution, continuous journey to being a better person. And Phil Dunster was just, he brought everything. He like he left no crumbs with this role basically. And then what I love about Jamie was that he was funny when he was funny when he needed to be funny. A lot of the time he was kind of the levity in moments like this, in moments throughout the season. And while at the same time, like, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say here. I mean, I think what the strongest points of season 3 also was Jamie and Roy kind of coming together and like evolving their relationship from being kind of just like players to kind of just like frenemies and just like adversaries competing against one another when we first saw them in season 1, and now them kind of now having this coach player dynamic, and then having that like kind of mentorship, but also brotherhood, father-son kind of dynamic all in one coming together. And that just benefited Jamie's arc even more as he kind of like also was able to learn, like teach Roy ways that Roy could never kind of like verbalize or communicate. And then that made Roy a better character and better person for it. And but yeah, I think it's just Jamie Tartt's arc was just so well done. People were saying that it's comparable to like Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like I think, I mean, not as nuanced as Zuko's, but I think it's what people were trying to get there was that I think just being able to have Jamie be on this continuous journey to being a better person, and then there would be moments where he does kind of fall back into like old ways and patterns just because of how he was brought up, but then despite all of that, still wanting to do better and do more, it was just beautiful to see Jamie becoming one of my favorite characters. And then but also like, I mean, maybe this is just me, but then I mean, again, maybe the Zuko-ification of Jamie Tar, but like just like physically too, he looked better. Like his bleached hair. I mean, I heard that his bleached hair was like, I think with David Beckham inspired from like the 90s, early 2000s when David Beckham was still very much playing. But I think it also just like added to the fact that he looked more or felt more attractive because he was being a better person, as opposed to season 1 where I was just like, no, like get this boy away from me. But now it's just like, oh wow, okay, like he's evolving, he's growing, he's maturing. And then I think even through Keely's eyes, there's moments where she's just like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, Phil Dunster deserves an Emmy nomination for this season, hands down. Like I would love for him to win, but obviously this year, I mean, not to be a tangent, there's a lot of good performances, but I think Phil Dunster has it in the bag for at least an Emmy nomination.
I agree with that.
I think he's totally deserved it. And what I love most about about Roy and Jamie is the fact that exactly what you said, Marmar, about like how they were both like enemies, kind of like competing back and forth, but then became like friends, and how like two men can actually have like a healthy masculine relationship without it actually having like some sort of like love like in there. Even though Marmar, you did say like you did kind of want to throuple.
It's an enemies to lovers though. There is definitely an enemies to lovers vibe to this.
For sure.
Yeah.
But how you interpret it, there definitely are fanfics out there wanting to ship it, but I think
Ted Lasso always has a running theme of rom-com, so I wouldn't be surprised. Just saying.
Right. Maybe that's a spin-off series or something like that where we dive deeper into Roy, Keely, and Jamie. So, but yeah, what was like kind of like our like entire thoughts on like season 3? Because season 3, I feel like Marmar, before you joined like this call, Maria and I were kind of like saying that people were watching, but they weren't actually talking about it like on social media. They were just kind of like, it was just kind of like there. But like, since we all loved it, like what were our thoughts on like season 3 as a whole? So
Maria, you can go first.
Oh yeah, I would say it's a little complicated. I'll be honest with you. Like I liked it, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of episodes that I loved. There's a lot of moments that I loved. I cried a lot throughout. But I will say, like overall, there are things that I felt weird about. Like I feel like certain things, certain plot lines. Overall, I really loved Ted's story. I love Jamie's story. I am okay with the way everything ended, but I do have certain feelings about things. So like, and I don't want to like get into it all, but I just feel like the show, and I think what it is that I think the show had a lot to cover and do, this being its final season. And I think that the show ended well. Like I think it was a good series finale, but I don't know if it was a good season finale, because I feel like actually Hope's Loop and Monica, I was talking about this on Temple Geek. I feel like episodes were missing. Like certain things would happen in the next episode and I'd be like, wait, why did Nate quit? What happened in between? And I just feel like maybe there was either they could have had 1 or 2 more episodes. They didn't have to do a whole new season, but if they had like 1 or 2 more episodes where they kind of like walked us through, like I just like kind of like bridged some gaps, I would have felt a little better, because like Nate's storyline for me was a little disappointing. I feel like we had to like rush through the Roy Keely thing a little bit. Like I understand and respect what happened. I do think it makes sense, but I was like, it felt like it was so sped up. And I just think it's because there was a lot had to get done. Sam was one of my favorite characters. I felt like he got kind of sidelined. Like how did he get to the Nigerian team? So it's just like, I have a lot of questions, I guess. But I understand why they had to do it this way, but I don't know. It's complicated, like up and down for sure.
I guess first, one of the I can start with the strengths. I think one strength that I think it carried out throughout this season 3, and I think it probably took notes from the social media, or just how people were talking about season 1 and season 2, was the queer representation of season like of Ted Lasso. Like just went from like 0 to 100, like just really quick. Like there was just like like so many different characters that came in and they're like, oh yeah, Colin, yeah, he's gay. Keely, she is bi. And then like, oh, there's another like female character that came in. It's like, oh yeah, she's also queer as well. So I think I appreciate it because I also have talked about it prior to season 3, where I was like, I'm very like shocked that there was no queer characters, or at least like, especially when they started getting more into the social commentary of like, yeah, the politics of like mentioning politics and sports and stuff. I was like, oh, I wonder if they will ever address that, especially again when the show is very like intersects fatherhood with toxic masculinity, and how I think it would be a good opportunity to talk about, because there are queer male athletes, they do exist in the real world. So I thought like, okay, like maybe they'll like introduce it in season 3, and then I guess they heard us loud and clear and they kind of just went full throttle on it. I appreciated that. So I really appreciate, yeah, I love that. And yeah, I agree. I totally agree with what you said too, where it's like a lot of like pacing. The pacing of this, like it just there. I think the like beginning middle was really good. It was starting off really like strong, and then you could tell the last few episodes they were trying to kind of like quickly kind of like muster up certain things to try to get it to episode 12. And I just wish it took a certain time and like again like try to fill in certain details with certain like character arcs. I think, yeah, I agree. Ted, Jamie, I think were the strongest ones. I think they took really good care, and I think they always knew that Ted was going to go back to Kansas. And I like that. I love that journey and arc for Ted. Yeah, I think Roy and Keely. I mean, I had a feeling they were going to break up just based off of what happened in season 2. I was glad that they started in the beginning of the season, and then I knew that I thought that okay, like they'll try to like find each other and then kind of slowly like find their way back. But I was shocked that they never interacted. And then there'll be like one moment they come together because of the photo scandal that Keely had, and they kind of did this again, and then they kind of went back, and then it just felt really rushed, and then they added Jamie into that, and then it was like, okay, nope, Keely's having no one, and I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with Keely being the independent woman that she is, and then wanting to prioritize career over relationships right now. Love that for her. I think just the way it was execution, it was the way we got to that just felt really rushed and didn't feel as good of a payoff as it could have been, given that we've seen season 1 and season 2 of Ted Lasso. I know there's like we know the caliber of writing is like top tier, so it felt like it felt more like a series finale, like you said, more than a season finale.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just I think that the reason why it felt rushed is as Jason Sudeikis, like he's basically a showrunner on the show. He's gone on record and said that 3 seasons was always like the plan for this entire series. And one of the things that I love most about like season 1 and a little bit season 2, mainly season 1, is that it was a half-hour comedy. And it told stories within a half-hour like time limit. Season 2, it started getting more into like 40-45 minute, and then season 3 was like an hour episode, hour plus episodes.
It's like Stranger Things level.
I feel like that Jason Sudeikis, he just didn't want to say that he needed another season to tell, because he felt like he would be breaking a promise in a way, and I'm just saying, like, even if you said you needed like an extra season, I don't think any of us would be complaining. It's not like you're breaking a promise or anything like that. It's just literally, I don't know. I appreciated it more when it was telling these important stories with 30 minutes, because I'm a graphic designer, and in school, one of my favorite like instructors was like do more with less, and the fact that they could tell like really interesting stories in 30 minutes, I think that's like, and it's an incredible craft. And this is kind of like the whole issue that I have with like the whole streaming landscape of just television in general, where they feel like they have to like add more minutes and feel like that will solve stuff. As we already addressed, it didn't necessarily solve stuff. Like Rebecca, like she got closure, and Ted got closure, but all these other characters got sidelined. Like maybe that will be a later spinoff, but I don't know. That's just like my feelings on it. So,
for sure.
And I do think they could do a spinoff. So like even if they don't have Jason Sudeikis, because I think his personal life started getting interrupted, unfortunately, by the show, and that's why he couldn't do another season. I don't know fully. But like I would watch another season without him. Like I know it's called Ted Lasso, but if it was like the Richmond Way or something, I would still watch those characters, because that's the beauty of Ted Lasso. Is like they develop these characters so well that like we love them too, you know. So I'm hoping to do a spinoff. I don't know why. I have like a gut feeling that they might do a spinoff.
I think so too, especially since
Definitely.
everyone just loves it. But Marmar, do you think they'll do a spinoff or?
I wouldn't be surprised, especially since they've been so like vague with like not giving a definite answer of like, is this the series finale? And they're like, well, we planned for 3 seasons, and I'm like, you're not answering the question.
Yeah, you're right.
But I have a feeling that, I mean, also I think just from a business perspective, I feel like Apple TV Plus would not want, like, that's their cash cow. That was, I think, a big draw was Ted Lasso as a flagship show. So I feel like they would want to milk it for as long as they can. And I think there are opportunities to tell more stories in this like universe. So definitely, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think it would also, given all of our points of like, I think there were certain characters that were sidelined. There are certain things that, like, I mean, even though it was done, it didn't feel like completed. So I think they could like continue to do that, and they try to have more closure with certain things. So I wouldn't mind definitely a spinoff.
Yeah. But what are some of our like thoughts? Like, I know we kind of covered a little bit of some of the stuff like in the finale, but I guess I'll just say like that one of my favorite like moments from the finale, I guess really the whole series, is just the development of just Rebecca. Like Rebecca, like I stated, like Rebecca was like, she didn't want this team. Like she was wanting this team to fail, and she came in and treated Ted like a joke. Like he wanted him to fail. At the end, when she is sitting in those stands with him and begging him to stay, I'm telling you, I'm telling both of you, I was a wreck. Like I was a wreck. Like her entire arc is absolutely incredible throughout this entire series.
I agree.
What do you think, Marmar? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with you, Marley. I think, but it was very unexpected in a way. I think another, I guess, critique I have was, I mean, not critique, but I mean, depending on how you look at it, I think, I mean, you can tell, like, I mean, it didn't, there's no really surprises or elements of surprise throughout the this season. And I think one thing that kind of like caught me off guard or like surprised in a great way was Rebecca, and how she kind of like had this realization that, oh, like I do love this team. It was not like my love for this team like overcame my hatred for Rupert and wanting to and I love that for her. And then also like with like the like her being this girl boss, or just being one of the very few women in this like who own a football club. And I love that they gave that moment as well to Rebecca, and being like her own independent woman, and how she also has like in a very Ted Lasso way inspired Keely to be her own independent woman and find her own PR firm. So I think I love that for Rebecca, and I love that like that journey for her career and that own self-reflection. In terms of her love story, I have thoughts on that, but like that's
I'm like, I'm the only one. I'm like, I don't know how to say this, but okay, yeah, okay. Continue.
Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about the whole Sam and Rebecca.
Yeah, go for it.
Maria, Marmar,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go for the record. I really did love Rebecca's Rupert story. I just don't understand her love life story. Like I was a little mixed about Rebecca's end, because I love that this show started out that she wanted to get revenge on her ex-husband. That's why she hired Ted. The season 3 started with her being obsessed with beating Rupert, and that was all she could care about. Now she doesn't even care what Rupert's doing. She doesn't want to comment on the divorce. She helped like the mistress and the new wife. Like, love this for her. Love that like Rupert tried to kiss her. She was like, nah, I don't want this. I love that. Her love life was so confusing though. Like they were like, literally, I think it was the second last episode, her and Sam are looking at each other, the green matchbook. I was just so confused. I almost feel like it was like a lot of red herrings. I'm just like, what is going, like it confused me a lot. They also did a will they, won't they with Ted a lot. And this like episode started with that. So I was just like confused. I guess that's the best thing. So like half of it was great. The other half was like, do you know what you want to do? And I thought it was a little, like, I love meet cute rom-com meeting at the airport things. But I'm like, really, the guy just showed up with his daughter at the airport whenever she was seeing Ted. Like, how lucky and convenient is that? So
Right.
I don't know. I thought, I don't know. I just didn't like that part, but love the rest of it. Love the rest.
Marmar, what?
I would say, yeah, all great points, and I totally agree. I think my biggest gripe of season 2 was just Rebecca and Sam, and I've been very vocal about why I don't like that relationship. And I think I understand the intention of why, because like, oh, if Rupert can do this, then why can't Rebecca? But it's like, I think there's a lot of like additional things to that relationship that I think, yeah, again, like the double standard, the sexism, and then knowing that if it were to come out and it somehow didn't come out, that that she was sleeping with one of her players, like that was, I would have thought it would have been really interesting if they ever like actually were going to go. I thought they were going to go down that route in like season 3, like something would have happened. But I think it was just like knowing that Sam was like 21 or 22. I was just like, we couldn't have aged him more. Like that would have been better. And again, I understand the rom-com meet cute, and I think it's nice that Sam is more emotionally intelligent, more mature. That like it's like the soulmate like fake conversation with Rebecca and Sam. But I just couldn't, like, realistically, just what like it would, something like that would not realistically happen and be successful and not have any repercussions or consequences. And the fact that also how Keely and like Sassy were like, I love that for you, and you're so supportive, and like no one is gonna notice the red flags in this relationship. Like you're all just happy that she's just getting dick. Is that all?
No, you're right.
That was what I kind of like. Also, I'm really like no one's going to say anything. I understand Rebecca, like Rebecca deserves to be happy and this and that, blah blah. But it was just like, I'm glad that they like ended it, and I feel like they caught. I think the Ted Lasso, like people caught whiff of like how many people did not like their relationship, and they just never really referred to it ever again. They had like glances and stuff like that, but it was just like never fully like oh yeah, and then never seen it again.
Yeah, it was definitely a fling, and like I'm glad you brought up the age gap, because that's something that it is justifiably so that we bring up like pretty much all the time in media, because it is kind of a big problem in pretty much not just Ted Lasso, but movies, TV, of just like these relationships where the age difference is it, not saying that's bad, but like in the right situation. But I feel like Sam and Rebecca, it's like it would have been bad for like Sam's career, and Sam is trying to like open like a business and like be like a famous like footballer, and Rebecca is just like it would have hurt Rebecca too, just because like the owner of the team,
more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I do think it's like the writer was just kind of like, yeah, we didn't do that. We were kind of drunk in this room. So I'm like, so we wanted this, but it was just a fling. It was just a fling. They were just at like a party or something like that.
And like to the point of like comparing her to Rupert, like, oh, Rupert can do it, but like, isn't she trying to be better than Rupert? Like, wouldn't she not do it? Like, I will say, I feel like they are hit or miss with relationships. Like, a thing that annoyed me with season 3 was Nate's relationship with his girl. And I feel like sometimes they get the marks right with like Roy and Keely were perfect, but like then the thing with Michelle happened with her therapist that they never addressed really, and then like Nate happened, then Sam and Rebecca happened. So I feel like half of the relationships are solid and great and like well done. And then the other half are they're like, oh, they would be cute together. Let's just have them blindly shipped. And so I don't know.
I'm really glad you brought up Nate's like girlfriend, because I found that the episode when he just quit West Ham. Like, can you explain that to me? Because I was totally lost.
No one can. Like, none of us can.
Because it's like assumptions, but I can't tell you. Like, I mean, I can again. You can make assumptions. You could probably write essays of why. But yeah, the fact that they were like, yeah, like he just doesn't want to, like, bye, and it's like that's a huge plot point that we'll never know why.
And we want to see that. Like, we wanted to see when he stood up to Rupert. Like, why did they like take that away from us? Like, as fans, I feel gypped.
Yeah, I felt gypped for sure, and like Marmar, I was like DMing you when that happened like constantly throughout the show, and like one of the things that I did kind of like appreciate like Nate's arc in season 3 is like his relationship with his dad, and then I forget what episode it was because it's all kind of like a blur at this point, but when he picks up his violin and like rediscovers like the art, like football was obviously like he was focusing on that, and then he rediscovered like what made him happy. I was hoping that he would have quit West Ham and would have went back to like Richmond and like one of like like he would have played like at halftime and something like that. Like
Mhm.
Nate would have kind of like rediscovered something from his past that would have made him
Mhm.
happy and made him happy now. That's
Mhm.
personally what I would have wanted, just because there's as someone since I watch sports, there was a coach for the San Francisco Giants for
Mhm.
Tim Flannery. You two probably don't know,
No.
but he was a third base coach, and
Okay.
like he won like 3 World Series with the team, and like he just retired like one day, and now he's like a jazz player, and that like this is something that he's always wanted to do, and like I would have loved Ted Lasso to kind of like to have like a character that was into like music, to kind of like still tie in something that he loves in football, but
Mhm.
also having something to kind of have like marry both of both worlds. But yeah.
That would have been really cool. I will say, like, I feel a lot of things about the Nate arc. I do like that him and his father had a good conversation. Like that was strong to me. Because I was a firm believer. I like made videos about this. So, like until Nate gets a better, healthy relationship with his father, will he be able to forgive Ted, or Ted could forgive him? And I even like the fact that Beard came to him and was just like, "I'm going to forgive you because that's what my friend would do." And it was almost like a nod to the audience, like we're forgiving Nate because that's what Ted would want for us to do. I just didn't love that, like literally a few episodes before that the whole team was mean mugging Nate. They hated him. And then the next episode, they're like, we want you back. You know?
Boring.
Yeah, it felt disingenuous a little bit. And this is why I felt like there was like it's pacing, and I feel like there was things missing. Like I feel like scenes were missing. Like what happened? And I was actually thinking about. I'm like, what would I have wanted? I almost would have wanted because like Nate went through this whole depression phase, which again, very strong mental health, being realistic. I almost wish the team would have seen that. I almost wish like you know how Ted showed Beard, Nate falling over trying to get the believe sign, humanizing him. I wish the team would have seen Nate depressed and down, and like seen him as a waiter, seen him with his beard, seen him like just like at the rock bottom, and then be like, wow, Nate's actually going through it. It would have been a nice like humanizing moment too. It's like it felt a little like I don't know. Again, something was missing. So, and I love the idea of the violin. Like I love that this. I didn't even consider that. That's a good tangent, like for them to do too. So. I just don't love the idea that the girl saved him. Like that's such a it's such an overdone trope, and like the idea like oh he just needed like it's just not to like use this word, but like it's just like okay, so Nate's an incel. Like all he needed was a girl. Like he needed a relationship. That's all this was. Like we expected like isn't this Ted Lasso? Like aren't we supposed to be better than that? So that's what I kind of felt like. Oh, through the power of a girl, like a relationship, he got better. Like it made no sense to me.
I definitely have, to your point, I've had conversations with another mutual of mine, Danielle Silverstone, and then she's been very vocal about just Jade's insertion in Nate's life and like where it took Nate. And especially since Jade like did not
I forgot her name, by the way. I was like, oh yeah, that's her name, Jade.
Yeah.
Like that's how.
She's season 2 when Nate. I mean, she was just like straight up ignoring this man for whatever reason. Like she was just like I just didn't know what her intentions were, why she did what she did, and all of a sudden she had a personality in season 3, and it's like cool.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, by the way. Like
yeah, Jade was totally a nothing burger throughout this entire season. Where it's just I wanted more for her, but not. Yeah. But this is not what I wanted. This is
Especially the implication, it came across that like she started paying more attention because now he's a manager now. And it's like, oh, okay, let me just like start talking to you. And it's so that was just really weird.
Yeah.
It to kind of like in defense of like what you just said is that a lot of like I'm not saying a lot of people are like this, but like when people have the manager title or a leadership title in society, we present people differently, and the way we approach them differently. It's like, oh, you're a CEO. Oh, you're a manager of this company. Oh, I'm interested in you. So I think that's what the writers were intentionally.
Yeah, and it can also be that like Mavis was more confident now, and
Yeah. But then they just had him just quit. Where it's just like, it's like, oh, I don't need this anymore. I already have the girl. It's just like.
And
I don't know.
The whole trope of like, oh, she's perfect, she's the best thing ever, but like we don't know her personality, we don't know anything about her. Like I didn't like that. Like Nate's just like she's the perfect girl. I'm just like she wasn't even talking to you days ago. Like, what?
Also, could I just say, and me and my roommate were watching this, and we both had the same thought where it's like, how is this hostess affording a apartment like a one like just like by herself this like really lavish apartment? And I was like asking, I've never been to the UK or like England, and I was like, can people afford that like on that salary? And she's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, so okay, that's fun. I don't know anything else further from her aside from that like thing that I noticed.
She's getting really good tips. So
that's it. He's living off
probably it. Yeah,
that's how she can afford this amazing apartment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's her character was definitely really messy. But to kind of go back a little bit, like between the whole Nate and Ted relationship, and Nate being scared of Ted because of like what he did to just kind of like Nate was just I feel like he left like for good reasons, because that like he was the Wonder Kid. And like he, like a lot of the things the team was doing, like that was Nate. So I can see kind of Nate being like jealous, and also seeing like social media, like the social media posts of like, oh, this is all Nate, and like and how Nate would be like afraid of Ted because he feels like he betrayed him. But when Mario, like when you said like when he had that confrontation with Beard. Like I gasped when it was Beard, and like it was actually Beard that he was the Beard was mad at Nate, because Ted, when it all comes down to it, Ted will forgive anyone. Like that's like I feel like that's,
and Beard knows that.
And I feel like in media today, like what is it's almost kind of frowned upon to forgive people, just because it's like because you don't know like what that person would do. But Ted totally like has like it's okay to forgive people as long as you like still kind of like acknowledge like, hey, this is what this person did, but hey, they're a better person because of it. You see what I'm saying? It's like,
and I'm okay with that. Like I knew Ted was going to forgive him. It made sense. I just like, I think what it was like they made Nate's villain story hard. Like he was bullying the Kit Man. He was like bullying Colin. Like he was bullying everyone. So they doubled down on his villain story. So for me, it was just like they're forgiving bullying. You know what I mean? They're forgiving someone who was like being kind of like that guy. Like after being, it's more of like he was bullied. He thinks he can bully now. That got to me a little bit. So like, and then he like, apologized to I'm blanking on the new Kit Man's name, but like he apologized to him. He, what was it? Will? Yeah. Well, so he apologized to Will and stuff, and I was like, okay, I appreciate that. It's just like I wanted Nate to have some sort of accountability, I guess. Like I wanted him to like face up to being like, hey, I was a shitty person, and I'm really sorry to Ted. Like and he did eventually forgive him, but again, it was so rushed, and like I've forgiven him. I'm okay with it because I understand that's what the show wanted. That's what Ted would want. Beard is like a symbol of that. It's just like, are we really going to like Ted Lasso doesn't like, I just don't see how Ted Lasso would be like, oh yeah, you can bully. Like whenever Jamie was bullying Nate, remember how Roy got on him, Ted got on him, everyone like stood up for Nate.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but Nate can do it and no one is standing up for him. Like no one's going to be like, well, why did you do that to Will? Like no one's going to stand up for Will now. So I felt like really like, okay, season before you guys did something very different to the same situation. So it felt inconsistent, in my opinion.
Well, I totally believe about the whole Nate just being influenced by social media, and kind of social media like got to his head, and I kind of wish that the show dived a little bit deeper and explained that. On how social media can just warp like someone's mind to thinking that they are like actually that they are better than they are, or that they are the reason that the team is succeeding, or they are the reason that they're succeeding. Because like there was like a few shots of like Nate looking at Facebook or like Twitter and seeing like all the likes, and he was like, he got a smile to his face because this is the first time that he's like actually being seen, which is important for someone like for someone like Nate. It's just the show just kind of like glanced at it and didn't touch on it ever again. So
I understand that and like I get it, because like I've actually thought that Nate was very much like Tahani Al-Jamil from The Good Place, in a sense like he never got the validation from his parents, so he sought outside validation. So social media, celebrities, that gives it to you. Fair. It's just how the show didn't let him be accountable for it that gets me. Like you can have all the reasoning in the world, but it's not an excuse. You know what I mean? Like all the villains that we love also have reasoning, but those aren't excuses for the terrible things they do, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like you're giving they set up Nate to be a great villain. It's like, but they also excused him for his villainy, in my opinion, I thought. And this is just my opinion for sure.
No, there's definitely a good case for, I think, not at least again, like going back to like if there's stuff missing throughout the season. Like I would have loved to have seen Nate kind of just kind of telling the team like, I'm sorry, I was a shitty person. Like
yeah, he didn't apologize once.
Even like the scene that now to that point, like where like was it Isaac and like Colin, like a lot of them went to the restaurant to be like, hey, we want you back. And it's like not even like kind of like they sought him out. Like and Nate, like, if it was more, I think, impactful if Nate kind of started crawling, like not crawling, but like just kind of like going back to Richmond to be like, I was a shitty person. Like I realized that I want to be here at Richmond. Will you take me back? Kind of thing. That could have been more of an that have that accountability kind of aspect to it instead of like everyone was just like, oh, like Ted forgives Nate already, so yeah, let's try to get him back. So it's like no rivalry.
And they could have kept, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They could have kept the beard thing. They could have just had like Nate come back, apologize. Everyone would be kind of standoffish. Ted give like his speech, or everyone forgive him, and then Beard saying, "No, I don't forgive him," and then him and Ted could have had a speech. Like it could have still worked. It just like that scene could have just been flipped, and it would have just made more sense in my opinion. Like it was like it was a weird choice, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think I remember that that scene specifically, like when the team goes to the restaurant to try and recruit Nate back. I make it pretty known on social media. I'm a huge fan of Fast and Furious and like family dynamics. I saw that scene as kind of like when you're on when you play sports, professional sports, or just any sort of team sports, you were essentially a family. So I feel like who was it that went to the restaurant? Was it Colin?
It was
Roy?
it was Colin,
Isaac, and Sam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Will.
I feel like that those four that they like it was like they missed like their family member. Like Nate was like their brother. Like even though Nate had had issues when he was leaving and he was essentially like bullying the team, like when you're a family you kind of forget. It's like you don't forget it, but like it like they missed him. It's you see what I'm saying? It's like it's like even though Nate is very flawed, like they still love him for like all his flaws, and I wish the writers kind of like would have like tapped into that a little bit more to address that. But
you should have just done more with it.
But yeah, since we're like approaching an hour, I feel like it would be like insane if we didn't touch about the final play in the finale.
Oh yeah,
because one of my favorite things about like the finale and season 3 is all the callbacks from the later seasons. Let's talk about like that final play where Ted calls out, "Oscar, you're the Oscar, Espy," and it's the same play from season 2, I believe, season
1 maybe,
where he wanted Jamie to be like the decoy.
Yeah,
season 1. Yeah,
I want to say it's season. It feels like a season 1 Jamie move. Yeah,
and he wanted Jamie to be the decoy. And season 1 Jamie, that would have not happened because like, he even calls out. He's like, "Oh, you don't know anything about football. It's like you're crazy, Ted Lasso." And the fact that Jamie trusted Ted, where like even the play before that, where the other team like scored a goal and everyone was like celebrating and Beard and like the other coaches were like, "Oh, well, I guess we just lost this." And Ted was just like, "That's offsides." And the fact he didn't know anything about football, like soccer, like at all, and they had Ted call out like that. I was screaming when that happened, just because it's like it shows that like throughout all this time, like he did remember one thing about football. So it's like, but yeah. But what do we think about like that final play of everything that was going on, of him calling over Nate and
it's perfect, basically.
It came full circle for a lot. Like, all the components like it came full circle from Nate to Jamie giving that performance on the field, and When he said barbecue sauce, I was like, oh wait, I remember him saying that.
Right.
I was like, yeah, that was season 1 thing too, where he said that, and then yeah, it was just perfect, and it was just, and I even love like even like from there, like the total football moment even too, and like how that was a huge metaphor for, I think, I mean, the Ted Lasso kind of way, and then just being able to kind of have this kind of like just in sync like synergy with one another, and again like that flow, like shit flowing in and out of each other, and then just all of that. I think it came together really well, and the moments when they did win, it was very intentional and like paralleled the story where like and how they got to certain wins and all of that. Everything kind of intersected. Obviously, the sport itself and like just when they play these games, or it just added more to the storytelling of what these characters are going through.
Yeah, and even like the like I was tearing up, and I've seen like my For You page is all messed up with like Ted Lasso like edits of him doing the Running Man.
Oh my god!
Oh
Way
yeah,
he did the
so
Running
cute.
Man. If they, you know what, here's the I know like Jason Sudeikis has stated like he doesn't want to like do this anymore, but this is something that if he really wanted to do a spinoff, he could do this in Kansas, where it's like it's a football, it's American football now, where it's like him kind of it's a prequel to Ted Lasso, where because Marmar, you've expressed this on your TikTok about like how you the way he's doing the Running Man for AFC Richmond and how he did it for like the American football team. I want to know like the stories on how he changed the lives of like those young men.
Oh, that'd be so cute.
It would be. My heart already melted for this version of Ted Lasso, but I think it would have even melted even more. And I think that's also it's also something so powerful about like what coaching can do in like sports, because like you don't necessarily like, it's important to know a lot about like the sport, but it's also important to turn the men or boys that you're coaching into better men than when they went onto the pitch and left the pitch. And I think the show ties a perfect bow on that, like absolutely perfectly. So yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I guess maybe my one association with sports is that my dad is a baseball coach. So I think I maybe in a very like, I guess like just a conscious way, maybe I love Ted Lasso in the way that he was coaching, in the way that my dad also has impacted many young boys' lives, like for like the decades that he has coached baseball. He still coaches baseball too, because that's just been his passion and his love. And I think seeing like just so many of his players like going up to my dad throughout the years, just just like still like being so impacted by the way my dad has like taught and like coached and everything. So yes, I definitely agree with like just how the power of coaching is just can like impact and like change a lot of people's lives with whatever game that they love.
Yeah. Mario, do you have anything you want to add?
This goes back to the whole like father relationships in like the show, because like I don't know much about sports and like coaching and stuff, even though I played soccer in high school. But like I also feel like a coach is a father figure, right? Like, Marmar's father actually is a coach, so she can definitely attest to this. And like I think it's really cute how like Ted was a father figure to these people, and it just kind of I love that Ted Lasso emphasize father-son relationships, because if you're not going to use a sports show to emphasize father-son relationships, like then that's a wasted opportunity. So if they can show that and like show like this is why like I almost kind of want to spin off, because I want to see how like the Ted Lasso way stuck with these people. It would just, I don't know, it would be very heartwarming to show that like, hey, one good influence in your life can really make a difference. So
yeah, and like I like that how you said the Ted Lasso way, because one of my favorite things in the montage, which the montage by I forget the name of that song. If someone could help me out.
Father and Son, or Son and Son. Yeah, Father and Son. Yeah.
I was in tears.
That was a good song to choose. Yeah.
But him, like when Trent Krim wrote the book, and he wrote it the Lasso way, and Ted gave him like pointers, like notes on it. He said it's not about him, it's about the team. And even Rebecca selling half of the team to to the fans of AFC Richmond.
Yeah.
It calls back to later in the season where she's having like the meeting with like all the owners, and she basically just like that really hit not close to home, but I know people that are like really into like the whole owners, and they get into like all like the money aspects of like a lot of money gets thrown around like in all these sports, and the fact that Rebecca just said no, this is uncalled for. It's like these fans love the team, and the fact that you're trying to profit off this because this team means a lot to this community, and like kind of like living in a very relatively like small area with like a major sports team, like the major sports teams mean a lot to like those specific communities, and when they leave, like it dramatically like affects like everything. And the fact that Rebecca wanted to pay homage to like just everyone in the community and just gave him half the team, that says so much about her character. I loved it. So yeah, I just love the show. I love the show.
It was very sweet.
Yeah, for sure. But since we're like approaching an hour, let's just final thoughts on just everything that we talked about, like Ted Lasso. Like what do you want to see in like in the future, like. But just final thoughts in general. Like, Marmar, I'll let you go first. So.
Yeah.
I think just who would have thought that a show like this? I think again, like that, don't have like direct experience. Have never played football or soccer, or like I have played sports like growing up, but like not to this caliber, obviously. But I think I would never have thought that a show that also has predominantly male characters, I don't know why, like just hit me so hard, and like just kind of just impacted me in a way that I like never thought it would. And I think it was just like the incredible storytelling, and just like these characters were just, you just can't help but root for so many of them to just be like not just like win, but also just be better people outside of the game. And it's just it was a blessing. It really was just like a lightning in a bottle kind of show, and just like all the stars aligned for it. And I love just as big as I've said many times throughout this podcast. But I think I wish like he deserved his flowers for creating such an incredible show, and then just also like having a lot of I think actors and actresses who are more well known in the UK, but then like not like in like I guess greater like US or like just like globally, but like getting these people to kind of now be global superstars like Brett Goldstein, Hannah Waddingham, Juno Tim, like all of them, like getting even like Toby Jamo too, like having them have their moments. Like a lot of them are going to have such great careers because of Ted Lasso. I love that for them. And so yeah, I think just a show that just kind of preaches not only positivity and just hope and like believing oneself, but also knowing that you can believe and be a better person, even though you can make mistakes along the way. Like that, I love that message, and I love the show too.
Yeah, and also like to just kind of piggyback on what you said about Brett Goldstein. Like I feel like Apple would just be kicking themselves in the foot by not continuing this with Roy Kent as the coach, because he is in the MCU, and that would he's in the MCU now. Like they would be missing out on an opportunity to kind of like piggyback off like Marvel and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Yeah, but Maria, final thoughts on?
Everything Marmar said was like perfect. It was like I really like the whole like lightning in a bottle commentary. I'm just gonna miss the show so much. Like I respect any show that knows what it wants to do with this ending, and I always feel like shows that have like a less seasons but like have a clear message and like a clear idea of what they want it to end are always just so much satisfying. But I'm just gonna miss this show. Like we don't get enough shows that celebrate joy. We don't get enough shows that like teach you to be a better person and like celebrate the idea of how important it is to do better and try better. I'm gonna be rewatching it like crazy, and but I don't know. This is why I want to spin off, because I'm just like I know it was good. It was great the way it ended. It's just like I'm gonna miss the presence of the show in our like society in general. I feel like I love that it was as popular as it was, because I feel like it was an excuse that other people could be maybe learn things about themselves too. So it's very sad that we're just losing one of these kind of shows.
Yeah, it's very a tender moment. Like for me, just because I love shows that do express just the importance of positivity, and just what I appreciated most about Nate or Ted throughout the entire season is like when he had like a problem come his way, like most characters on other shows would try and get revenge and be like try and be macho, and what Ted would do, he would either just have like a funny line or just like a dad joke, throw it in there, just have like a smile and then just kind of like brush it off. Like says a lot about like what the show was like actually going for, and just being like, and you don't necessarily have to get into a big fist fight to like get even with someone, and and I feel like having a show like that is so important, and I'm totally gonna miss it too. Like I'm gonna be rewatching the show as much as I can, and maybe all three of us can petition to get Apple to like to maybe hire us as the writers for season 4, but called Roy Kent. So or should they call it Roy Cunt? Because that was one of my that was one of my favorite things. Like when Jamie gave him the jersey, where he was just like, "Oh, I spilled it," like cunt.
I want that jersey. Just someone needs to make it on Etsy, and
I'm surprised it's not made already.
I'm sure it's definitely in the works, but I would buy it.
I love Brent's reaction. He's just like deadpan. I love it. He was just, and I know he did. We know he loved that shirt.
Right. But yeah, Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched it, hopefully you did watch it because we spoiled the entire show during this entire podcast. But go watch it. Marmar, I'll let you go first. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, I am on TikTok as well as Instagram. It's like a lot of it's just Maryeesa, and I have a letterbox as well. I also have a serialized. That's kind of all the platforms that I have, and so I also do a lot of commentary on like TV and movies as well too. So, and just diving deep into a lot of things in those things. So if you love that, then definitely give me a follow.
Yeah, Maria.
And I'm mostly on TikTok too. I'm branching out on Instagram and YouTube. And Maria watches everything. I do a lot of deep dives on television, sometimes movies, fandoms for sure. And if you basically like Marmar, if you like television, you should definitely follow me.
Yeah, definitely follow both of these wonderful creators. Like the deep dives that you two go on are loved by me and loved by everyone that will be following you in the future. I'm just gonna after we're done recording, I'm just gonna watch Ted Lasso again. So it's just like but it's so great. But thank you to both of you for kind of like talking me through this, because I definitely needed it after that rocky series finale. But you can follow me at Marley Loves Film. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Got a letterbox, same username. If just type that in Google and just follow me everywhere where I'm on, where I can post about movies and TV. And then you can listen to this. You can listen and watch this podcast on YouTube, the Real Lovers Podcast, and give us a rate and hit that like button and give us a rate and review on iTunes and Spotify. Anyways, my name is Marley Silverbrand, and for Maria and Marmar, keep watching movies and believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.